Yes.
Yes, so this is a, you can say, a mystery of the perfect maid is a detective story, all right, where a fictional detective is present, that is Miss Marple in this story, and she solves the mystery that is present in this story. Okay, so it has been written by Agatha Christie, and actually she is one author who is known for these types of stories, where she writes stories with a lot of, you can say, drama, with a lot of mystery, and then she has detectives in the story that try to unlock whatever drama is there, right? Whatever mystery is present, whatever secret is there in the story. So we will find out. Yes, Neha, start reading.
Chapter 15, The Mystery of the Perfect Maid by Agatha Christie.
Yes.
Agatha Christie is best known for her work revolving around her fictional detectives Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple. Miss
Poirot
Marple
and Miss Marple, yes.
Poirot and Miss Marple. Miss Marple appears in 12 of
Agatha Christie's crime novels, yes.
Agatha Christie's crime novels and in 20 short stories. She is an elderly spinster who lives in the village of St. Mary Mead and acts as an amateur consulting detective.
Yes.
What makes Miss Marple so effective as a detective is her ability to blend in the background and for her shrewd intelligence. In The Case of the Perfect Maid, which was published in 1950, Miss Marple witnesses Gladys, an honest maid, being dismissed. Gladys had been accused of stealing from her employers, Miss Lavinia and her sister Miss Emily. A new perfect maid, Mary Higgins, is hired to replace Gladys. Miss Marple senses that all is not as it seems and sets about finding a way to prove Gladys' innocence.
All right. So now you can see that Agatha Christie is best known for her work revolving around her fictional detectives. So she has created some fictional detectives of her own, like Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple. So these characters appear time and again in her detective stories and novels. So she is known actually for writing these types of stories, crime novels, and stories where detectives are present and they try to solve the case, to solve the mystery. Miss Marple appears in 12 of Agatha Christie's crime novels. So, in 12 novels, this character is present in Agatha Christie's novels and in 20 short stories. So, you can see this character of Miss Marple was created especially by Agatha Christie for her crime novels and short stories, which revolved around detective theme, right? Where something fishy was happening. She is an elderly spinster. So now we are getting to know who Miss Marple is, how she drew the character of Miss Marple. She is an elderly spinster, and spinster means someone who is unmarried, who lived in the village of St. Mary Mead. So this is the name of the village, and acts as an amateur consulting detective. See, amateur is a person who does not do anything professionally. All right, professionally means charging money for something. Okay. So if you do something just for fun, just for pleasure, then you are an amateur. Otherwise, you are a professional if you take money for it. Right. For example, we paint, we play cricket, right? So we are not professionals. The cricketers who play for money, they are the professional ones, right? We play guitar, we play piano. Again, we are not professionals. We are doing it for fun. The people who take money for it, who make a career out of it, they are the professionals. So, Mr. Over here also, Miss Marple is not a professional. She does this detective work just for pleasure and not for money. What makes Miss Marple so effective as a detective is her ability to blend into the background. Blend into the background means to hide herself in the background. Means whatever is happening, she is an expert in hiding such that no one notices that she is present over there. Okay, some people are very good at it, that they go at any place and nobody notices them, and she can be there, notice everything, yet nobody notices her. Okay, so she was very good at it. And for her shrewd intelligence, shrewd means someone who has a very sharp intellect, and you can say someone who is very wise and cunning. Okay, so for her shrewd intelligence and her ability to blend into the background, that made her a very good detective. In the case of The Perfect Maid, which was published in 1950, Miss Marple witnessed Gladys, an honest maid, being dismissed. So this was an honest maid, Gladys. She was dismissed from a household, right? Gladys had been accused of stealing from her employers. So this maid was accused that she stole something from her employers, and the name of the employers are Miss Lavinia and her sister Miss Emily. So these are the names of her employers. A new perfect maid, Mary Higgins, is hired to replace Gladys. So a new maid is hired who is very perfect in everything, and her name is Mary Higgins. And she is hired, and Gladys is replaced. Miss Marple senses that all is not as it seems. So Miss Marple was quick to understand that something is fishy, nothing is quite simple as it seems to be. So something is going behind it, and she sets about finding a way to prove Gladys' innocence. So now she starts to do her, what you can say, the detective work. She starts her investigation in a way that she can prove that Gladys is innocent. So we will find out how she does her investigation. So this is again another very interesting story. Yes, Genia.
Good morning, teachers.
Good morning. Yes.
Obediently shutting the door, Miss Marple's maid Edna advanced into the room and swallowed once or twice. Yes, Edna, what did you want to talk to me about? Said Miss Marple encouragingly. Oh, please, ma'am, it's my cousin Gladys. You see, she's lost her job at Old Hall with the and
Skinners.
Skinners, and Gladys very upset about it. Very upset indeed. Miss Marple looked slightly surprised. Her recollection of Gladys, who had occasionally come to drink tea in the kitchen on her days out, was a stout, good-natured, honest local village girl. Edna went on. You see, ma'am, it's the way it happened. The way Miss Skinner looked. How? Inquired Miss Marple patiently. Did Miss Skinner look? Oh, ma'am, replied Edna. It was such a shock to Gladys. You see, one of Miss Emily's brooches was missing, and such a hue and cry for it as never was. And of course, nobody likes a thing like that to happen. It's upsetting, ma'am, and Gladys had searched everywhere, and there was Miss Lavinia saying she was going to the police about it. And then it returned, and it
It
turned
turned
up
up
again,
again. Yes.
pushed right to the back of a door in the dressing table.
Okay. So now let's see how the story is opening. So you can see that the maid of Miss Marple is entering, right? And this is how into a room, obediently shutting the door. So it must have been the case that Miss Marple has asked her maid to shut the door. So obediently shutting the door, Miss Marple's maid Edna. So her name is Edna. This is the maid of Miss Marple. She advanced into the room and swallowed once or twice. So it basically shows that she was quite hesitant in speaking. This happens when someone is scared. and hesitant. When you want to talk something to your parents, you keep on standing, you do not say a word, and just keep on standing in order to get courage to speak, right? So she swallowed once or twice, she kept on standing there. Yes, Edna, what did you want to talk to me about? Said Miss Marple encouragingly. So because she was very hesitant in speaking, she was not speaking, so Miss Marple encouraged her in an encouraging tone. She said that please speak. What do you want to say? Okay. Now, so she said in an encouraging tone that whatever you want to say, you can say. Oh, please, ma'am, it's my cousin Gladys. So now, when she was encouraged, now she is saying that there is a problem with my cousin Gladys. You see, she's lost her job at the old hall with the Skinners. So, old hall is the place where she was doing her job with the Skinners. So basically, the employers, her employer, Gladys' employer, are the Skinners. This is their family name basically. And Gladys was very upset about it, very upset indeed. So she is saying that since she lost the job, she is very upset about it. Miss Marple looked surprised, slightly surprised. Her recollection of Gladys means the thoughts she has, the memory she has about Gladys. So she started to remember how Gladys is, who had occasionally come to drink tea in the kitchen. So because Gladys was the cousin of her maid Edna, so occasionally she must have come to Miss Marple's house, and when Miss Marple saw Gladys, she thought that she was a good-natured, honest local village girl. Stout means someone who is heavily built, someone who is a bit fat. Okay, so this is the description of Gladys. So Miss Marple considered Gladys as someone who was very good-natured, who was very honest local village girl. So basically, she was a very simple girl. So Miss Marple could not understand that why was she such a good girl was dismissed from her job, right? Edna went on. You see, ma'am, it's the way it happened, the way Miss Skinner looked. So now she is saying that now I'm going to tell you how it happened and how Miss Skinner looked at the entire situation. All right. How? Inquired Miss Marple patiently. Did Miss Skinner look? So now Miss Marple is asking, how did it happen? What did Miss Skinner say? How did she look at Gladys? Oh, ma'am, replied Edna. It was such a shock to Gladys. You see, one of Miss Emily's brooches was missing. All right. So brooch is a piece of jewelry that is used with clothes. Okay, you find some sort of ornament or jewelry that is fastened to the clothing, whatever you are wearing. That is a brooch. So one of the brooch of Miss Emily was missing. Okay, and because it was missing, she raised such hue and cry. Hue and cry means a huge noise. All right, a lot of noise, unnecessary commotion, you can say. That is hue and cry. A lot of fuss she created because of it, that it is missing, and naturally she was trying to blame the that it was stolen by Gladys. That is why it is missing. Okay, hue and cry for it, and never was, and of course nobody. So of course, wait, of of course, nobody likes a thing like this to happen. It's upsetting, ma'am. So now she is saying that because Gladys was being blamed, she was raising a hue and cry to blame Gladys for it. So she is saying that nobody likes such a thing to happen. It's very upsetting, ma'am. So she is basically trying to say that Miss Skinner was looking at Gladys like as if she was a thief, and Gladys helped search everywhere, and there was Miss Lavinia. So Gladys actually helped her to search the brooch everywhere. And Miss Lavinia, what she was saying? Saying she was going to the police about it, and then it turned up again. So it turned up again means the brooch was found later on, pushed right to the back of a drawer in the dressing table. So in the dressing table, in one of the drawers, it was kept and it was later found out by Miss Lavinia. And the very next day, a plate got broken and Miss Lavinia, she bounced out right away. All right. She bounced out right away and told Gladys to take a month's notice. So actually, you can see now she is saying that the very next day a plate got broken, and very quickly Miss Lavinia, she bounced out and she said that okay, now you have a month's time. I am giving you a month's notice. Now you should leave. So she is basically putting the blame of on Gladys that you have stolen my brooch actually, and when I said that I'm going to go to the police for it, then you put it back in the dressing table. This is what Miss Lavinia is trying to mean. And then the next day, when a plate got broken, actually she did not say this, but this was her meaning, right? Then, as soon as a plate got broken the next day, she said that now she is going to dismiss Gladys. And what Gladys feels, it couldn't have been just the plate. So now Edna is saying that Gladys feels that she is not getting dismissed because of just a plate, right? Actually, the real reason must have been the brooch only. And that Miss Lavinia was just making an excuse of that, means the excuse of the plate getting broken, and that it must be because of the brooch. And they think that she took it and put it back when the police was mentioned. So Gladys thinks that because once she found the brooch in the dressing table after she mentioned the police, so now she thinks that I must have stolen the brooch, and when I heard of the police I got scared and I put the brooch back in the dressing table. That is why Miss Lavinia wants to dismiss me, and she is just taking help from that plate incident in order to dismiss me from my work. All right. So she's just making an excuse of the plate accident incident, because that is not such a big incident that one plate got broken and because of it you dismiss a servant, right? You dismiss a maid just because of it. Gladys wouldn't do such a thing, and she feels when word of this gets round in the village, she will get a bad name. And it's a very serious thing for a girl, as you know, ma'am. So Gladys wouldn't do such a thing that she would steal something, and Gladys feels that if word of this gets round, means if this thing becomes known to everyone that she is being accused of stealing, then what is going to happen? Then her name, she will get a very bad name in the entire village, and it is very serious thing for a girl to get a very bad name that she is a thief. So she is very serious about it. She is very worried about it. Okay. All right. Yes, Akash.
Miss Marple nodded. She was quite sure of the
Girls' honesty.
girl's honesty and could well imagine that this must have upset her. Edna said sadly, I suppose, ma'am, is there something you can do about it? Tell her not to be silly, said Miss Marple crisply. If she didn't take the brooch, which I am sure she didn't, then she has no cause to be upset. I am going up that way this afternoon. I will have a word with the Mrs. Skinners at Old Hall. Oh, thank you, madam, said Edna. Old Hall was a big old house surrounded by woods near the village. It had been divided into four flats, which were let out to four different tenants.
Tenants, yes.
Tenants. Miss Marple was acquainted with all the tenants, though she did not know them well. The elder Miss Skinner, Miss was
Lavinia.
Lavinia was what might be termed the working member of family. Miss Emily, the youngest, spent most of her time in bed suffering from various complaints, which, in the opinion of village, were largely imaginary. Only Miss
Lavinia.
Lavinia believed
Devoutly.
devoutly in her sister's sickness and willingly ran errands for her.
Okay, stop there.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. So now Miss Marple nodded. So whatever her maid Edna told Miss Marple accepted it as it is. So she nodded. She accepted. This is a sign of acceptance. She nodded. She was quite sure of the girl's honesty. So Miss Marple was quite sure that Gladys is a very honest girl and could well imagine that this must have upset her. So she could very well imagine that because she is a very honest girl and Miss Skinner is trying to put an allegation on her that she stole the brooch, so an honest girl will naturally be upset because of it, right? Edna said sadly, I suppose, ma'am, is there something you could do about it? So Edna is saying that, ma'am, if you can do something about it, then please do it. Tell her not to be silly, said Miss Marple crisply. So she said that tell her she should not act silly if she didn't take the brooch, which I am sure she didn't. So she has so much confidence in Gladys. She is sure herself that Gladys has not taken the brooch. Then she has no cause to be upset. She is saying that she has no reason to be upset then because she hasn't done anything wrong. It's the Skinners that are putting up this false accusation on her. So I am going up that way this afternoon. I will have a word with Miss Skinners at the old hall. So she is saying that I'm going that way in the afternoon. So in the afternoon, when I pass from that way, I will talk to them at the old hall because they lived at the old hall. Oh, thank you, madam, said Edna. So now we are getting a description of the old hall. Old Hall was a big house surrounded by the woods near the village. So this house was basically a bit outside the village because you can see near the village has been written. So it was closer to the woods and near the village. So it was somewhere between the woods and the village, right? And it was a big old house which has been divided into four flats. So the house had been divided into four flats which were let out to four different tenants. Tenants means the people who pay rent for living at a place. Okay. So it had been allotted to four different families who were living in the old house because four flats were there. Miss Marple was acquainted with all the tenants. So Miss Marple knew slightly about all the tenants. She knew something. She had met all of them, but she did not know all of them very well. So she did not know all of them very well, but she knew about all of them. The elder Miss Skinner, Miss Lavinia. So Skinner, I have told you, was the family name. So the elder of the two sisters, the Skinner sisters, Miss Lavinia was the elder one, was what might be termed as the working member of the family. So she was the one who worked, who earned, she did everything. Miss Emily, the younger, spent most of her time in bed suffering from various complaints. So she was ill, she spent most of her time in bed suffering from various complaints. Various complaints means different types of diseases. So she was always in bed, Miss Emily, and Miss Lavinia had to work, right? So which in the opinion of the village were largely imaginary. So the complaints or the diseases which Miss Emily said she was suffering from was in the opinion of the village largely imaginary. So the people of the village thought that Miss Emily was perfectly fine, she was perfectly all right, she did not have any ailment, any problem. but she had this imagination in her mind that she is very sick, she has lots of diseases, she has a lot of complaints. So the people in the village considered that they were totally imaginary in nature. Only Miss Lavinia believed devoutly in her sister's sickness. Devoutly means to be very firm, to be when you follow someone very closely. All right, that is called someone who is very devout. So she was totally committed and sincere in the belief that Miss Emily was ill. So only Miss Lavinia considered her sister Emily to be ill, while all the other people considered that she was just making things up and she had this imaginary complaint, imaginary sickness. Otherwise, she was all right. So only Miss Lavinia believed in her sister's sickness and willingly run errands for her. So because she willingly thought that her sister was ill, so she did all the work for her. Run errands means to do all the jobs for her. Everything basically, to feed her, to bathe her, to give her clothes, to do anything regarding her. She helped her a lot and did all the jobs for her. In fact, it was the general opinion that if Miss Emily suffered half as much as she claimed, so what the general opinion is coming from where? The general opinion of the people of the village. So the people of the village had made an opinion that if Miss Emily suffered half as much as she claimed, so she must have claimed that she is suffering from this, she is suffering from that, she must be telling that she has a lot of diseases. So now the people in the village said that if she suffered only even half of the diseases that she mentions, she would have sent for the village doctor. Then she should have asked for the village doctor to come and see her. She does not call a doctor, but she keeps on saying that I am ill, I have this disease, I have that disease, but she never calls the village doctor. So that's why the people of the village had this opinion that all her diseases are imaginary in nature. But Miss Emily, when this was hinted to her, shut her eyes and murmured that her case was not a simple one. The best specialist in London had been baffled by it. No local doctor could possibly understand her case. So when this was hinted by the village people to Miss Emily that what they thought of her sickness, that when they said that okay, your all the diseases that you say, they are not actually real, they are just imaginary. If they are actually real and you are actually suffering from disease, then why don't you call the village doctor? So to this, Miss Emily said that her case was not a simple one, it was a very complicated case. The best specialists in London means the best doctors that were present in London had been baffled by it. When they saw Miss Emily, they were very confused. They could not understand what kind of disease Miss Emily has. So she is saying that when the best of doctors in London got baffled by my disease, so how can a local village doctor possibly understand my case? So this is what Miss Emily replied to them, that when the specialist in the big city like London could not understand my disease, so how can this local doctor present in a village understand my peculiar case? All right.
Okay, sir. The door of the Skinner's flat at Old Hall was opened to Miss Marple by Gladys, looking more depressed than Miss Marple had ever thought possible. In the sitting room, Miss Lavinia rose to greet Miss Marple. Lavinia Skinner was a tall, jaunt, bony woman.
Tall, not tail.
Okay, sir, it's sitting. Okay, sir. Lavinia Skinner was a tall, jaunt, bony woman of 50. She had a gruff voice and an abrupt manner, As servants were often the main topic of conversation in the village, so it was not difficult for Miss Marple to lead the conversation in that direction. Miss Marple mentioned that she had heard that nice girl, Gladys, was leaving. Miss Lavinia nodded. Broke things, can't have that. Miss Marple sighed and said we all had to put up with things nowadays. It was so difficult to get girls to come to the village. Did Miss Skinner really think it was wise to part with Gladys? No, it's difficult to get servants, admitted
Okay,
Miss
stop, stop,
Lavinia.
stop. So now
Thank you,
what
sir.
is happening over here is all right. So what is happening over here is that now this Miss Marple, the detective, has reached the old hall to the flat of Skinner's, right? So she had the door was opened by Gladys, who was still working there because she has been given a month's notice, right? She has been given a month's time, so now she will have to leave, but she was still present. She opened the door and looked more depressed, more sad than Miss Marple thought she could be. So her condition was not good. She was very sad because of the false accusation on her. In the sitting room, Miss Lavinia rose to greet Miss Marple. So when she saw that Miss Marple is visiting her, Miss Lavinia rose to greet her. Miss Lavinia Skinner was a tall, gaunt, bony woman of 50. All right. So she was a tall woman. Gaunt means someone who is very lean. Okay. So someone who is very lean and out of shape because she was very old. So she was very lean, very tall woman of 50 years of age. She had a gruff voice. Gruff means a very tough voice, a very rough voice she had, and an abrupt manner. Abrupt manner means someone who talks in a rather rude way, you can say. Okay, not in a very pleasant way. So this is the description of Lavinia Skinner, the elder of the Skinner sisters. All right. As servants were often the main topic of conversation in the village, so it was not difficult for Miss Marple to lead a conversation in that direction. So usually the women, when they gathered, they used to talk about their servants, their maids in their houses quite a lot. It was quite a common topic of discussion for them. So it was not very tough for Miss Marple to take the conversation in that direction. So she started talking about servants, right? Okay, so let's see then what happens. Miss Marple mentioned that she had heard that the nice girl Gladys was leaving. So now Miss Marple intentionally says that Gladys is a nice girl to get the opinion of Miss Lavinia, that what she thinks of Gladys, right? So she says that she has heard that the nice girl Gladys was leaving. So she is asking, why are you doing that? Miss Lavinia nodded. Broke things, can't have that. So she is calling Gladys broke. Broke means someone who is dishonest. So she is thinking that Gladys has taken the necklace. So she is saying that she is broke and we can't have her. Can't have that means we can't have such a person working in my house, right? Okay. Miss Marple sighed and said, we all have to put up with things nowadays. So she took a long breath, Miss Marple, and said that we have to tolerate a lot of things these days. It is so difficult to get girls to come up to the village. So she is saying that it is not very easy to find a good servant. We have to tolerate a lot of things. So she is saying that, Mrs. Skinner, do you think it is really wise to part with Gladys? Then how will you find a new servant for yourself, right? So this is how Miss Marple is questioning Miss Lavinia. No, it's difficult to get servants. So Miss Lavinia is admitting, she is saying that I know it is very difficult to get servants, but then also she is saying that because since Gladys is a dishonest person, so she cannot have a dishonest person working in her house. All right, so we are stopping here today.